Look at the extreme ankle flexion and the low, compact posture captured in this image. Lionel Messi represents a masterclass in neuromuscular efficiency and the precise manipulation of spatial geometry. Now contrast that with the physical architecture of Cristiano Ronaldo. His upright, extended stride, and rigid upper body mechanics are engineered for a completely opposing outcome: hypertrophic power and absolute kinetic velocity. Here, we find the central biomechanical paradox of modern football. Two completely divergent physiological architectures have achieved the identical statistical peak of human performance. To understand how this is physically possible, we have to look under the skin. We will dissect their vestibular systems, their muscular structures, and their neurocircuitry to map these two specific peaks. Analyzing this divergence forces a shift in how we approach sports science. We are no longer looking for a single perfect build. We are optimizing distinct, highly specialized biological archetypes. This map plots the human's center of gravity. At 170 centimeters, Messi's center of mass sits 0.9 meters above his base. As this radius shortens, inertia drops. Mathematically, a lower center of mass requires less torque to initiate a sudden change in rotational velocity. Because his rotational inertia is so small, he can absorb massive ground reaction forces and instantaneously redirect his horizontal momentum without compromising his balance. Cristiano Ronaldo operates under a different set of physical laws. At 6 feet tall and weighing 79 kilograms, his mesomorphic frame sits much higher off the ground. That larger skeletal frame acts as a structural requirement. It provides necessary anchor points to support the heavy, complex muscle recruitment needed for maximum output. Watch the anatomy violently compressing and launching upwards. Ronaldo's architecture converts forward momentum into extreme vertical displacement, executing complex aerial kinetic chains. Where Messi relies heavily on managing horizontal ground reaction forces to weave through tight spaces, Ronaldo is built to dominate vertical ground reaction forces. Morphology creates a specific set of physical constraints. While training refines skill, these athletes develop playstyles perfectly aligned with the exact force vectors their skeletal frames are built to handle most efficiently. When an elite athlete executes a sharp turn at high speed, the vestibular system takes over, managing balance and spatial orientation under extreme physical stress. This diagram illustrates the inner ear's semicircular canals. The central axis remains perfectly stable while the environment spins. This precise vestibular isolation lets Messi barely look at the ball. As neural pathways light up, his body makes precognitive balance corrections, completely bypassing visual confirmation. Ronaldo's neurological profile relies on a different sensory loop. Rather than utilizing severe vestibular stabilization, his system favors proprioceptive dominance. He maps his body's position in space through the tension in his muscles and joints. This allows him to trigger heavily ingrained explosive kinetic chains, optimized for linear tracking and high-speed aerial intercepts. These specific neural profiles dictate footwork. Messi's processing results in high-frequency steps with contact times around 0.12 seconds, while Ronaldo's requires maximum stride displacement. The way their brains process spatial data forces them to interact with the geometry of the pitch using entirely different kinematic rhythms. Zooming in on the localized muscular engines, Ronaldo's hypertrophic architecture is defined by an immense density of fast-twitch muscle fibers. Look closely at the tension across the quadriceps and calves during this maximal sprint extension. These fibers, amplified by plyometric adaptation, generate the raw cross-sectional force necessary to propel him to a peak velocity of 33.6 kilometers per hour. Messi relies on a completely different biological engine. He utilizes neuromuscular economy, favoring hyper-efficient neural wiring rather than gross muscle mass. This timeline plots electromechanical delay. The elite average is 60 milliseconds, but Messi operates at 40 milliseconds. Expanding this window reveals glutes, hamstrings, and calves firing in exact sequence. This synchronization safely absorbs an 800 Newton braking force in exactly 0.25 seconds without structural failure. Over a 90-minute match, these distinct engines carry different metabolic loads. Ronaldo's system requires massive energy expenditure for every single explosive kinetic event. Messi conserves with energy by distributing the physical load across localized muscle synergies, utilizing low-friction micromovements to navigate the pitch. Generating raw hypertrophic power and maintaining extreme neuromuscular economy are mutually exclusive biological survival strategies for delaying metabolic decay during prolonged athletic stress. At the absolute highest level of playmaking, the brain employs a cognitive phenomenon known as perceptual time dilation. This chart maps cognitive processing bandwidth. Notice the massive spike in sensory data absorption just fractions of a second before movement begins. As the x-axis stretches to accommodate that data, subjective time slows down. The brain processes a single physical second as multiple distinct cognitive frames. Operating inside this widened cognitive window allows Messi to initiate predictive microadjustments up to 0.1 seconds before an opponent even commits their weight to a movement. Ronaldo processes the field differently. Rather than sustaining peripheral calculation, his neural mapping triggers rapid binary pattern recognition aimed directly at goal-scoring geometry. In this image, Messi's static, calculated positioning on the field highlights a biological reality. As cellular degradation inevitably compromises peak physical speed, an athlete must recalibrate, prioritizing presence, observation, and pure predictive efficiency. When mechanical limits inevitably degrade, supreme neurological adaptation becomes the single remaining biological variable capable of keeping an athlete at an elite level. Messi and Ronaldo represent two distinct physiological strategies for reaching the peak of human athletic performance. Their careers provide a concrete dataset for the outer reaches of physical output. Modern sports science now actively standardizes the Messi profile, evaluating prospects based on precise variables like a sub-1 meter center of gravity and a sub-50 millisecond electromechanical delay. On the right, the Ronaldo build provides a framework quantifying the type 2x fiber density and optimal stretch-shortening cycle capacity required for explosive force. The success of both of these opposing profiles proves there is no single anatomical destination for human physical perfection. The peak of elite biomechanics demands a strict biological choice: hyper-refined mechanical efficiency or raw explosive force. To join us for our next scientific investigation beyond the boundaries of reason, make sure to subscribe and activate the bell, only on TEMBODocs.